Yes, that one was a real hair pull.
I left. I was like, I'm scared to be here. I'm like, Melissa's going to beat me up after this. Hey guys, Albert here, Realtor with Home Smart Professionals and team leader at the Hajdaraj Group. And I got Melissa Delana here from Delana Law. And today we are talking about the process of buying a home in Rhode Island. But we're not talking about, because we've covered multiple times of how it looks like on my end of things, as far as me finding a house, negotiating a deal, doing inspections, repairs, and all that good stuff. We also have covered how it looks like on the lending side of things. How do you get pre-approved for a loan, how to understand interest rates and some of the closing costs. But we haven't yet covered the attorney part of things. Okay, and then sometimes that could get complicated and confusing, and sometimes not. Usually it's not when I use Melissa, when we work with Melissa, but sometimes it does when we work with other people. And sometimes I have to even call Melissa. I know I'm going to rant here, but I have to call Melissa to help me with the deal I'm doing with a different attorney. But it is what it is. Well, Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, tell us a little bit about this. All right. I'll paint you a picture, right?
Yes.
A buyer called us. We got them pre-approved. We got their offer accepted.
Okay.
Now what?
Are they from Rhode Island?
No.
Okay. So that's probably the first piece of information that I want to know as a real estate attorney, because if they're coming from an outside jurisdiction, they probably have a very different understanding of how this is going to look here in Rhode Island, because there's so many jurisdictional nuances that you're going to have to kind of curtail around. So for example, if they're coming from New York or most of the Northeast area, they're looking for an attorney to be involved probably right from the jump in negotiating the purchase and sales, where Rhode Island is very agent centric. So the real estate agents are typically the ones who are negotiating the purchase and sales, drafting the agreements, orchestrating the signatures. That makes many out-of-state buyers very uneasy, because they're accustomed to having an attorney review everything before they sign anything. And especially in a seller's market, which is where we are and have been for quite some time, there's not a lot of time for review, right? It's just let's quick and move. And Massachusetts tends to be more attorney-driven than agent-driven, where the seller's counsel will draft purchasing and sales and stuff like that. So again, if you're looking from out of state, even if you're just over the border in Massachusetts, it's different in Rhode Island because it's more agent-oriented. As far as what we do, our office as a closing and title attorney is that we are going to search the title and make sure that the buyers are purchasing it from the right people, and it's clear of any liens or encumbrances, and that they know what's going on relative to what they're purchasing. I field a lot of phone calls from clients, and they'll ask me for fee structures and things of that nature. And I tell them quite candidly, look, at the end of the day, you're buying a house. So you're going to have this house, you know, in 2 months or whenever the closing is, regardless if you work with me or somebody else. It's really a function of the relationship. Who do you feel comfortable with? Who does your agent and your lender feel comfortable with? I think it's important to have that team approach, because then you've got more of a well-oiled machine opposed to someone who's doing it in a bumpier fashion. And I think the issue you and I had talked about off air was, you know, you've got someone whose friend or neighbor or family member is a divorce attorney, but they can do a real estate closing. And I tell everybody, would you go see a foot doctor for a heart surgery? I should hope not. I have been divorced, and I certainly didn't try to do it myself, because that's just not in my area of practice. It's one of those things where we're not supposed to advertise that we're specialists, but what I can tell you is that our practice focuses on certain things. And in our case, it's real estate and conveyancing and all things that touch conveyancing. So I've been at it for 17 years. Carmen, my father, who I'm in practice with, has been at it for 47 years. So between the two of us, there's not much we haven't seen, but there's still things that come up, believe it or not, that we're not sure about. And, you know, we've got a better understanding and sophistication with our fluency. So we know how to, you know, kind of jump over those hurdles sooner and easier for the client, which is ultimately the goal. You don't want this to be, you don't want the title to be a big hullabaloo conversation, because it's something that most buyers don't understand. I describe it as legal minutia. Because that's truly what it is. Well, this mortgage was discharged by the wrong legal entity. So what does that mean? Well, it's a nullity, but at the end of the day, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. You know, that is your attorney's job. That's what your closing attorney is supposed to do, is to make sure the work is done, it's done right, so that it's never going to come back to bite you when you go to sell the property at some point down the road.
Here's one of my favorite things. When I say favorite, I mean I'm being sarcastic. that happens when you do a closing, like you said, with an attorney who doesn't handle real estate on a day-to-day basis. They do the title search, and now they're going to find the title that last time this property was recorded 15 years ago, and there was a $900 lien that was never discharged from this deed. Now you go to look at that lien, and it's from a bank that went out of business, and then was bought from another bank that went out of business, and then another one that went out of business. So now you have to go hire a third-party entity to go do that digging and that work to find it so that it gets discharged. But here's the problem. Because you are dealing with someone who doesn't do that on a regular basis, they usually find out 2 days before closing.
Right.
Now, a $900 issue could cost you thousands in the lending side because your rate might expire.
Right.
So many other potential issues just because you made the wrong attorney choice.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's probably not your fault that you did, but it's just a lack of kind of information in a way.
Absolutely. And I think that, that's why you want someone who's going to be able to organize and strategize with you on, well, how do we keep this transaction moving? And more importantly, how do we get the information in more real time so that if there is a problem with the title, we have the ability to handle it. If it's 2 days before the closing, maybe nobody could get it done that quickly because that seems almost impossible. But, if
you did one 4 days before closing for us.
Yes.
Which was
yes.
great.
That one was a real hair.
I left. I was like, I'm scared to be here. I'm like, Melissa's gonna beat me up after this.
No, I just tried to gently remind you that may not be realistic, but I would do my very best. We got lucky on that one. There were no title issues. So what happened in that case was really unusual, but the lender hadn't ordered the title with anybody. And that was kind of a classic miscommunication, which can happen. Getting back to, buying in Rhode Island, if you've never purchased here before, and again, you're coming from out of state, we talked that there's a lot of states that are attorney states and they're expecting the attorney to be involved, but you're not going to see that here. There's also a lot of folks that'll be coming from, particularly out west, and they're used to dealing with escrow companies. So when you as the agent tell them, okay, or the lender tells them, we need to hire a real estate attorney to conduct the title and the closing, they can be very put off. First of all, they imagine that it's going to be tremendously expensive, which frankly it isn't. And second of all, they don't understand, well, why do I need a lawyer? I've never used one before. I've purchased 2 or 3 homes in California and we don't do it that way. So what's the difference? So, I mean, at the end of the day, not a lot. What I tell everybody is somebody's searching your title, somebody's conducting the closing out in California, and they're responsible for the transfer of the funds. The difference is those are title companies and they are non-attorneys. And then in Rhode Island, most of the practitioners are going to be real estate attorneys that are handling the closings and the titles. Not all. There are some title companies here, not to be confused with title insurance companies, because those are truly the insurers of the title to make sure that if, God forbid, there is an issue, you have the access to being made whole if there was a problem with the title that's not discovered. And we can talk more about that, but it's a snooze fest. So I think that it's just really important for out-of-state buyers to understand that it's the same thing that you may have with your escrow companies out of state in California is what you're going to have here with a real estate attorney in Rhode Island, because for the most part, it is a lawyer-based state.
Another thing that personally I found, and I find every day to be very valuable is using people who are experienced and have been around for a long time. I was telling you this earlier. Most of the time we try to refer people to our trusted partners. Obviously it's people's choice. We give them our advice and our opinion as to who they should work with, and when we do, it's usually a very smooth transaction. The problem that's
a good point, not to interject, but Rhode Island is an attorney state in so much that you as a Rhode Island buyer, you are authorized to choose whichever attorney you want to handle your title work, which is why I always think it's kind of comical if you choose a non-attorney to handle the title work. The state law says you can choose your own attorney. Why would you do that? So many folks, especially coming in from out of state, will just rely on their lender, and the lender may not have a relationship in Rhode Island, especially if they're out of state. Because if you're out of state and your lender's out of state, well, who the heck do they know that's here?
Here's the problem. I think what happens is because buyers don't know how it works, they either trust, like you said, their lender or their agent. And then the agent doesn't really do a good job at explaining the process, right? Usually when we sit down with a buyer, we will talk about the lending part and the closing part and how it's kind of like a triangle and how it needs to all work for this this to happen.
Absolutely.
If one fails, you're not closing and potentially risking losing deposits and things like that.
Right. Which is, it's crazy. And I think, again, we had talked offline. If you're in a situation where the transaction's not going smooth and maybe you do need legal advice, do you really want a title company of non-lawyers to be trying to help you? Because they really aren't allowed to. That's actually the unauthorized practice of law. They can't get involved of counseling you what's going to happen if you're in jeopardy of losing your deposit, or if you're not able to perform. I have one right now, Albert. It's awful. My folks sold their property without my knowledge. I didn't know. I wasn't representing them. They sold their property several days ago, and their simultaneous purchase got delayed. Unbeknownst to them, the sellers weren't able to perform because they had a property to buy and it's new construction, and delays happen, especially around the holidays and supply chain and blah, blah, blah. So I had to negotiate a opportunity for us to close, arrange for a rent back with compensation so that my clients could find some short-term housing. It's been a lot of heavy lifting, and this is the true lawyer work that I do and that I don't do for an additional cost. We are charging a flat rate fee, as most real estate attorneys do. This is what the cost is for the closing and the title. That's tied to the lending. We are not allowed to charge anything additional unless we negotiate an additional fee with our clients. So I know my clients appreciate it, especially because they're in such a fragile state. There's so many emotions going on. There's so much challenge that they're facing, but they wouldn't be, I feel, they wouldn't be in the same position or as good of a position if they didn't have a real estate attorney counseling.
No, 100% they would not. No, and we'll end this with this, right? Sometimes they wonder, why did I just pay this attorney and this? That's why. If you're wondering that means that's exactly why, because things went smooth, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
If you don't have to talk to us a lot, that's a good thing.
Exactly.
But it's good to know that you have that extra layer of protection should you need it.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what it is. All right. Well, I think this is good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, we crushed it.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, absolutely. Guys, subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Don't ask me for legal advice because I ask Melissa usually.
Don't give it.
Yeah, but I can find you a house if you're looking for one. Again, subscribe to the channel, and until the next one, we'll see you.